The first and most sacred rule of war is to know your enemy with an intimacy that rivals any lover. For 12 long years, I had been a devoted scholar of Kai Donovan. I had cataloged the specific dark flash in his steely gaze that preceded a verbal strike, the subtle, arrogant tilt of his chin that signaled his victory, the way his voice could drop to a lethally soft register that promised retribution. He was my nemesis, my shadow, the perpetual thorn in my side since our families decided blending a corporate empire was more important than their children's sanity. The second rule of war was to never, ever show surrender. But as I stepped into the sun-drenched, cavernous living room of the summer villa, my suitcase feeling like a lead weight in my hand, his gaze, familiar and yet entirely new, slammed into mine from across the expanse of polished concrete floor. It wasn't the usual look of cold disdain or competitive fire. This was different. This was a silent, treacherous bolt of lightning that arced between us, so potent I could almost feel the ozone crackle in the air. My breath hitched, a tiny, betraying sound lost in the room's vastness. For 12 years, what burned between us was pure, unadulterated hate. I stood there, frozen, realizing with a soul-deep tremor that I never knew the line between hatred and a desperate, ruinous desire could be so terrifyingly thin. The terms of my mother's will were brutally, impeccably clear. 1 full month cohabitating in the shared family villa with the Donovan heir, or I would forfeit my entire inheritance and my future stake in the company. It was a test of endurance, a cruel joke played from beyond the grave. The villa, a masterpiece of modern architecture with its floor-to-ceiling glass walls and open-plan design, became a beautiful, inescapable prison. Sunlight, which once brought me joy, now felt like an interrogator's lamp, exposing every flicker of emotion on my face. Kai's family occupied the east wing, mine the west. The neutral territories, the gleaming kitchen, the minimalist lounge, the infinity pool that spilled into the horizon, became our battlegrounds. We were ghosts haunting the same pristine spaces, our paths crossing with a frequency that felt designed by a malicious god. I'd find him making coffee shirtless at dawn, the muscles of his back flexing, and my traitorous heart would stutter. He'd pass me in a hallway, his arm brushing mine, and the simple, accidental contact would feel like a brand, leaving a phantom heat that lingered for hours. The air itself grew thick and heavy, saturated with every unspoken word and every glance that lasted a second too long. We spoke only in clipped, polite barbs for the benefit of any watching family members, but our eyes conducted a far more dangerous, silent conversation. The change in the atmosphere was as palpable as the pressure drop before a hurricane. The sky, which had been a flawless blue all day, began to bruise with purple and gray clouds. By evening, the storm broke with a vengeance. Rain lashed against the glass walls like it wanted to shatter them, and a sudden, deafening crack of thunder plunged the entire villa into darkness. The hum of the air conditioning died, leaving only the furious symphony of the storm. I found him not hiding from the tempest, but embracing it. He was standing on the sweeping veranda, drenched to the bone, a stark, defiant silhouette against the violent, lightning-stitched sky. The wind whipped his dark hair, and his white t-shirt was plastered to his torso, revealing the powerful lines of his body. Still tempting fate, Sophia, he shouted, his voice raw and powerful against the roar of the elements. A reckless, wild energy seized me. Someone has to save you from yourself. I yelled back, stepping out into the punishing rain. The cold water was a shock, soaking through my clothes in an instant. He turned slowly, and the look on his face stole the air from my lungs. The carefully constructed mask of cool indifference was gone, washed away by the storm, replaced by a raw, devastating hunger that made my knees weak. He took a step toward me, his eyes blazing. "I don't need saving," he growled, his voice a low, visceral thrum that vibrated deep in my bones, a sound felt more than heard. "What I need is for you to stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" I breathed, my voice trembling. Like you can't decide whether you want to kill me, he said, closing the distance between us until mere inches separated us, or devour me whole. His words hung between us, a challenge and an admission all at once. The rain streamed down our faces, mingling like tears we would never allow ourselves to shed. The space that remained between our bodies felt like the last fragile barrier before a cataclysm. All the years of rivalry, of stolen, furious glances across boardroom tables and dinner tables, of whispered insults and public humiliations, culminated in this single, saturated moment. Maybe I do, I breathed, the admission tearing from a place I had kept locked and barricaded for years. It was not a shout, but a whisper, and it was more powerful than any declaration of war. It was all the permission he needed. The space between us vanished. His hands, surprisingly gentle, came up to cup my face, his thumbs stroking my rain-slicked cheeks. His touch was not cruel or demanding, but desperate, as if I were a mirage he was afraid would disappear. "This is a terrible idea," he murmured, his forehead coming to rest against mine, his breath warm against my cold lips. "The worst idea we've ever had." "The worst," I agreed, my own hands coming up to clutch at his wet shoulders, needing an anchor in the dizzying storm. And then I closed the final, fateful inch. Our lips met not in a gentle exploration, but in a clash that felt more like a surrender than a battle. It was 12 years of pent-up frustration, of furious denial, of a magnetic pull we had both fought with every fiber of our being, exploding into a single, consuming fire. It was not soft or sweet. It was raw and hungry and tasted of rain and reckoning. The world, the storm, the villa, our family's feud, fell away, leaving only the feel of his mouth on mine and the terrifying, exhilarating knowledge that we had just crossed a line from which there was no return. Later, the storm had quieted to a soft patter, and the power had returned, casting a low, golden glow through his bedroom. We were tangled in the damp sheets of his bed, the enemy's territory that had, in a few hours, become my only sanctuary. The air was thick with the scent of rain, clean skin, and spent passion. His fingers, which could be so hard and commanding, were now tracing the line of my jaw with a reverence that made my throat tight. "I swore to myself," he said, his voice rough with sleep and a newfound vulnerability I had never heard before. "I swore I would never want you. I built walls, Sophia. High ones." A soft, sad smile touched my lips. "And I swore I would never fall for you. I thought my heart was made of stone where you were concerned." He shifted, propping himself up on an elbow to look down at me, his dark eyes intense and serious. "This changes everything. You know that, don't you? Our family's this decades-old feud. It's a battlefield, and we've just raised a white flag for each other in the middle of it." I reached up, my fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. The fear was there, a cold knot in my stomach, but it was overshadowed by a feeling of rightness, so profound it dwarfed everything else. "Let them hate the world," I whispered, my heart hammering against his chest where it lay. "Let them have their corporate wars and their bitter history, but they can't have this. They can't have us." His eyes searched mine for a long moment, and then he nodded, a slow, determined gesture. It was a silent pact, sealed not with a kiss, but with a shared, dangerous understanding. As the first rays of a pale, new dawn began to pierce through the slats of the blinds, painting stripes of gold across the rumpled sheets and our entwined limbs, I lay awake in the circle of Kai's arms. His breathing was deep and even, his sleep peaceful for the first time since we'd arrived. The world outside this room was still there, waiting. Our families, the business, the expectations, it was all a house of cards, and our actions had created a wind that was destined to blow it all down. But in this quiet, stolen moment, cradled against the chest of the boy I was taught to hate and the man I had inexplicably, irrevocably fallen for, I felt a terrifying peace. We were a contradiction, a paradox. We had started as enemies, our story written in ink made of rivalry and resentment. But this attraction, this obsession, was a slow burn that had smoldered in the darkness for years, and now it had erupted into an all-consuming blaze. We were always destined to end in flames. The world would see it as a destruction, but as I felt his heartbeat against my palm, I knew it was also a creation. And this time, come what may, neither of us was walking away.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more dark romance stories.